Well, good evening, everybody. The H1B Guy here, and tonight, the H1B Guy Live Stamp It Out 10 Q&A covering immigration journey, H1B MD in rural America, advocacy, and a whole lot more. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. If I can help you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how. Today's live stream is brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001, and also by Path to Canada. Path to Canada is an ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain. If you're facing an H-1B denial or OPT expiration, don't get caught off guard. Make sure you have a plan B, and Path to Canada is your answer. Well, tonight I have the privilege to introduce to you Dr. Pranav Singh. Back on August 31st, 2020, Dr. Pranav tweeted, "Why, as a physician, I'm giving up a life of indentured servitude in the US and moving to India." That tweet has well over 1,850 likes. And later that day, back on August 31st, I responded that I hate to see this, but unfortunately, your story's not unique. 2017 was the beginning of thousands of others developing the exact same sentiment, and that, I wished you nothing but good luck and success in your next phase. Since that comment, I've been introduced to over 100 different H1B MDs that are living and working in the US, including Dr. Raj Karnatak, who joined me for Stamp It Out Q&A 7. Dr. Pranav has made 2 trips to protest on the steps of the Capitol and has been interviewed for multiple publications. I covered that during the H1B Guy News on March 19th, 2021, as well as the H1B Guy News on April 16th, 2021. So without any further delay, Dr. Pranav, how you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks, Rob, for having me on your show.
Yep. Thank you so much for joining me, and just really appreciate it. Just wanted to ask everyone who's out there, if you haven't already, like this video, make sure you're subscribed to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. And we're going to try to do a Q&A here at the end of our discussion. So if you have any questions or comments that you would like for Dr. Pranav or I to address based on our conversation tonight, please make sure that you post those in the chat. So Dr. Pranav, as we start off every Stamp It Out Q&A here, it basically is this question, and that is, tell me your story. Where are you originally from, and why did you come to the U.S.?
So, Rob, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you just fine.
Okay. So I'm originally from New Delhi. That's the capital city in India. And that's where I did my medical school. And after that, I did my residency training in India. And then I decided that I'll come to US for higher studies to get a better professional learning experience, and also to have a better quality of life. Just for the same reason that humans have been migrating for centuries, and it's our innate nature to migrate, to go to a place where you can have a better lifestyle, where you can contribute your best to the society. So that's the reason I came to US in 2005.
So 2005, do you remember the month?
Well, 2005 is when I came for the interviews, but I started my residency in 2006, July.
Okay, so July 2006, we're at May 2021. So 15 years of living and working in the US, correct?
Correct.
So if you could go back in time and before you came in July of 2006 to begin working, what's some advice that you would tell yourself before you stepped on that plane?
Well, like I said, the purpose of me coming to the US was to advance my training and to achieve new skills. And I don't think I would change anything. Um, the this country has given me immense learning opportunity. The medical education is the best in the world, and the learning experience that I've had here, living here for last 15 years, I won't change that. I'm professionally, I'm satisfied with my decision, but there are few things that people who are now thinking of coming to the US to study and to advance their professional career, that I will let them know in advance.
What would a few of those things be?
Well, first of all, for opportunities, sky is a limit here. America is called the land of opportunities, and despite all the immigration hardships and all, I still believe in that. And the only thing I would change is not to invest yourself emotionally and financially in this country till your immigration status is more secure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good place to learn, it's a good place to work. But at the end of the day, after having lived here for so many years, you want more stability, you want certainty in life, you want a
Mm-hmm.
safety net. And if you are on a visa like I am for the last 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
H1B, those these things are all very temporary. And
Mm-hmm.
I invested my life. We have a home here, raised my kids. But I would reconsider that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
I knew that we were going to be stuck in a decades-long green card backlog, I would
Mm-hmm.
change that. I would
Mm-hmm.
be prepared all the time to be able to leave to India or to some other country that respects you, that not only needs you but wants you, and that won't get you stuck in a green card backlog
Mm-hmm.
for decades.
Yeah, I
Um,
think the message is that you're temporary and you have to have a temporary mindset. And I think
right,
it's when you allow yourself to have a permanent mindset, right? That
right.
things can shift for you. And
Hmm.
you shared something with me where you said that, the pandemic, COVID-19, you had this aha moment where it was this realization for you as not only a professional, but as a human, that nothing is permanent. Can you help me understand what that shift in mindset, means for you and how that kind of came about?
Right. So, let me go back a little bit. When this pandemic started, we had a COVID surge in one of the towns about Sioux City in
Mm-hmm.
Iowa. That's
Mm-hmm.
about an hour and a half away from us. And
Mm-hmm.
they were looking for help with the doctors. And I decided to help them out. I went there and I could see death firsthand, staring at me. In the ICU, people were dying like flies, and it was a COVID surge in a meat plant.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of immigrant workers were affected from that, and they were very sick in the critical care unit. And one of these days, I had this my PPE, the protection kit on, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing this patient, and poor guy was going through an alcohol withdrawal. He he coughed on me. I had all the
Mm-hmm.
protection in place, but seeing those those secretions right in front of my face with deadly virus in them,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole perspective on life changes when you're staring at death. And so I worked there for a week to help them out, and then I came back to my hospital, and that's how it all started. That's when you're comfortable, you have a job, and life goes smoothly. You don't get a chance to think about the green card backlog and the humanitarian crisis that it entails. And then when something like this happens, when you are face to face with death, then it changes your perspective on the whole situation. And that's when I decided, and that's when India also started to go through a surge.
Mm-hmm.
And my immigration status, and as you know, the green card backlog, it was not heading anywhere. So at that time, I decided whether I want to live a life of servitude. And let me tell you why I call it indentured servitude. When
Mm-hmm.
New York was going through this crisis, I used to get calls from the recruiters and hospitals every day to
Mm-hmm.
come and help them out in the surge. And just because I'm on a visa, it was not possible.
Yeah, on an
So
H-1B visa, right? Because there
correct,
has to be a labor condition application for each work site that you're
right,
going.
right, right. So even in the living here for 15 years, I'm not free to move and serve people who need me. And at
Mm-hmm.
that time, I decided that I'll I'm going to take a leap of faith. I'm going to go back to India, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to provide my services there. And that's what I did from August to December. I worked at a hospital that in a COVID critical care unit, and it was a good learning experience going back to my country for after almost 15 years in the U.S. and all the medic expertise and that I could provide to help the people out there. So that was
Mm-hmm.
a very good experience for me.
It's interesting because back in October, I had covered an article that Pravina Jadev had written, that was in the Journal Standard, and she's a physician in Rockford, Illinois.
Okay,
Which hits home to me. I have family from Midwest Illinois, and that story is very similar to what you just told, because in that article she talks about she couldn't go anywhere other than her medical facility where she was working in Rockford because of her LCA and the whole work site piece and fear of
right,
being out of status. And I think that's something that a lot of times when we talk about H1Bs, a lot of the focus is on STEM and developers and technology, and not necessarily H1B MDs. And I think that was, for me, what was very eye-opening about your tweet back in August is I knew there were exempt H1 medical MDs, MDs working on H1Bs exempt status, but still falls under the same regulations with a maximum stay of 6 years and requiring employment-based preferences. And the thing that's interesting about that is those employment-based preferences, even for a medical MD, generally are in an EB2 status. And so, that's the very interesting thing. And I think the other interesting thing you talked about, a hospital in Sioux Falls, Iowa, being about an hour and a half away. And, you're a pulmonologist that living in a very small Midwestern town in rural Iowa. And,
right.
literally one of two MDs with those credentials in 100-mile radius. And so, you talked about life in America, and you talked about, everything that you've benefited from here. But I think that's the one thing that sometimes is missed by a lot of us in large metropolitan areas, like myself, living just outside of Atlanta. But what's life like in rural America for you, an MD from New Delhi, India?
Well, uh, you know, um small Midwest town. It's a laid back lifestyle. If you look at the lifestyle, it's more laid back. It's not as hectic as a big town. Living in Delhi all my life, all the busyness and the traffic, it kind of gets to you. So you want a more calm and relaxed life. It's a comfortable life. Professionally, it's satisfying as we have a very good hospital and medical healthcare system established in this town that serves a population of almost 150,000 with all the satellite towns. So professionally, it's satisfying, uh, and the good thing is the hospital has been very supportive for my immigration things, and I went to India for 4 months, and the hospital supported that. Otherwise, on somebody who's on H1B visa, it's not possible to leave your job. Once you leave the job, then you lose that the visa status. So I've been happy with the hospital, the professional work environment. Small town suits my lifestyle, and Midwest is like the northern part of India. The Punjab, it's like the corn capital of the world, just like Punjab, from where I am, is the wheat capital of the world. So it kind of reminds you of my native place.
Yeah, the Corn Belt, very very blue collar. You talked about servicing 150,000, and I look at that from a 100 square mile radius, right? In terms of all of the feeder towns that feed into your medical facility.
Right.
And to me, I think that's the lost message here, which is rural America and what would happen from a healthcare perspective if high skilled immigrants, medical professionals such as yourself, decided that the US was no longer the top destination for them. I think that impact right now is an unknown. But when you look at what that could look like, especially on the heels of the pandemic, I think that's the untold story here.
Right.
You've talked about this a few times, and you mentioned you went to India from August to December, and I alluded to the tweet that you sent, and in that tweet was a letter, an infamous letter now, I think, for a lot of immigrants that are out there, and I think, to me, I look at you, and I talked about it earlier about you going to the Capitol. You've made your rounds with the publications, but what is it that for you? I think when I look at your actions, what is it for you that really motivated you to speak out, and then not just speak out, but take action behind that?
Well, as physicians, we are not very good in advocating for ourselves, or for our peers, or be more politically aware. And most of our life is spent in studying and taking care of our patients. But you reach a certain point in life when you have a professional satisfaction, and you're doing good personally, and but then you see that you're tied by the rules of immigration. You see the discrimination happening around you. uh, you've been in the US, and you are still considered a temporary status after 15 years. An unborn child in anywhere else in the world will have a better chance of getting a permanent residence here than somebody who's been living here for more than a decade. And on top of that, you see death around you. Your patients, your family in India, your friends in India who are suffering from COVID, and then you see that the suffering that the backlog community is going through. I mean, there is no other community that is as affected by this travel ban as the Indians are. And
Right.
just because they're in the backlog, they are affected the most. You know, there are thousands of people who went to take care of the ailing sick parents. So, and you know, unfortunately, some of them died, and they are now stuck there in India because the consulates are all closed, and there is a travel ban, which doesn't consider the fact that you have lived in the U.S., you have a home, you could have children here, and just because you're on a visa, you are discriminated. I mean, this rule doesn't even make any sense. You know, that a person who's a citizen or a green card holder can travel, but a person who has been living in the U.S. for 15 years, but he's on a visa, they cannot travel. I mean, COVID is
Right.
not going to look at your virus before infecting you. You know, and this is a humanitarian crisis. It's leading to family separation, and this is all because of the green card backlog. Most of the people who are stranded in India right now, if they were from any other country, they would have been green card holders or citizens by now, and they won't be going through this hardship. And you know, I dread the day if my parents fall sick and I leave. Again, the consulates are closed, and
Right.
there's no way I can come back. I have a U.S. citizen daughter here. I have a daughter who's lived all her life here, 15 years, and she's at risk of aging out. And my wife is working here. People from her family died, and she couldn't visit them because she didn't have a visa.
Right.
So these kind of hardships, they motivate you. You know, they and these are it's the problem is that it's only people from India who are getting affected. And people think that legal immigration is great in America. It's flawless, but it's not.
That's
It's
right.
it's in a bad shape. We still follow the segregation era rules of country caps. You know, um, country every India has 1 billion plus people, and we get the same number of green cards as a place like Iceland or Ireland with
Right.
1,000th of population.
That's
And
right.
this is, if this is not segregation, I don't know what it is. And I don't think this is sustainable because people are getting vocal, they are getting frustrated, and it's reached a tipping point.
That's right.
We had so much hopes from this administration. We have not seen any action so far to end the green card backlog. You know, there is all the talk on the Twitter that you see, and but there is no real support to end the green card backlog. I mean, you know, there are so many reasons to be motivated to speak out.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you, you know, you made a ton of valuable points there. I think one of the things I wanted to go back to is I'm picturing you in PPE, you know, staring at droplets in the face, right? And what
Right.
that moment is like for you. But then I take that and I look at, you know, reading the tea leaves, if you will, and that is, you know, all the different chatter that's out there, and how I think through COVID, what happened is you had a lot of high skilled immigrants stuck. And specifically, you know, we talk about this all the time. 70% of H1B visa holders are from India, and you look at 140,000 annual employment-based green cards are issued every year with a 7% country quota on that, and it starts with EB1 and works its way down. You know, that's what's created this, and today, you know, the June visa bulletin was released, and you know, for EB2 for India, the current date is December 1st, 2010. Well, June 1st, 2021 puts that at exactly 3,825 days or 35 days, right? That's 10 years and 7 months, Dr. Pranav, that,
Right.
you know, an individual that probably came here in 2006, 7, 2008 maybe, and their employer sponsored their perm labor and then got that priority date in December of 2010, has now waited 10 years and 7 months for their final action dates to come current. And I think that's been one of the big things that for me, as this channel has evolved, I still go back and look at the worst way to come to America is based on your merit and skill. And that was, the infamous quote from my good friend Christine Mikulaszuk when she was on the H1B Guy Stamp It Out Q&A 4. And I think if you think about that, right, that tells me that our immigration system as a whole for high-skilled immigrants and for employment-based preferences is broken. And a lot of the laws that we're working off of are based off of 1990. And I think that, from the pandemic, as we emerge out of that, high-skilled immigrants as a whole have done several things I think that hopefully will benefit them in the very near future. And that is that they've mobilized, right? There's advocacy groups that have risen out of this. There's a lot of very vocal community that's out there. There's been a lot of funds that have been raised. And you look at all of the different, discussions around reform that have come out. One of them that I talked about a good bit last year was, Senate Bill 3599, that the Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act that was originally introduced by the senator here from Georgia, former senator from Georgia, Senator David Perdue. But that language has been reintroduced. We had a day one U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021 text that was alluded to and subsequently released, several weeks later, that includes, recapturing unused visas and potentially looking at eliminating those country caps. But when you look at a very large comprehensive immigration reform bill like the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021, the likelihood of something like that passing really starts to become very, very doubtful, especially as we move into an election year. And then a lot of people have been wondering, where is, our little friend S386? And, when are we going to see the Fairness for High Skilled Immigrants Act and some form or some similar text reintroduced? But I wanted to come back to, S3599, which I think creates immediate relief for medical MDs such as yourself that are frontline healthcare workers. And we've seen that strategy globally from a lot of different countries that have given immediate citizenship to medical professionals such as yourself. Do you have any thoughts on if there is a possibility that we may see more traction for the Health Care Workforce Resilience Act? And what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have to apologize that I've not been involved in advocacy for S3599. I do admire the hard work that PAHA, the Physicians for Healthcare Access, they have done so far. They have been very vocal and active, going to the Capitol Hill and getting the sponsors for this bill. And as you know, this Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act basically talks about recapturing the unused 40,000 green cards. In the past, 15,000 for physicians and 25,000 for nurses.
Right.
So, as a physician, at some point in the back of my mind, I'll be happy if it goes through. But the thing is that ultimately the inequality and the segregation will still remain. The people who are supporting this act, this bill, Senator Durbin and all, they have not acted in good faith. They have not. They have. Fairness bill is a common sense bill, and they have. Due to them, it's in this. Despite passing the House and then the Senate, it's back to nowhere, and it's all because none of these politicians, they act in good faith. And if somebody who has never acted in good faith, you cannot trust them to do anything with the SWRA Act. I I mean, you know, there was a talk about making this a part of the COVID relief package.
Right.
And in the middle of a pandemic, they couldn't do that.
Right.
So do you expect them to go anywhere with this act? I mean, I highly doubt it. If they
Well,
couldn't make it part, if they couldn't make it a relief for doctors in a pandemic, and then the part of this act says that 90 days rule, that if Biden administration lifts the COVID emergency rule, then you have only 90 days. I mean, the way COVID is declining in US, that's going to happen soon. So
that's right.
so I don't see this bill going anywhere. You know, I would
Yeah.
love it to be passed, but ultimately the question of inequality and segregation and the racism that's behind the persistence of country caps,
Mhm.
it's not going anywhere.
That's right.
I,
You gotta
I don't know.
address the root cause of the problem, right?
Yeah, the
And I
root
think
cause is not being addressed. Right.
that's right. And I think you're right. I mean, that's why I wanted to talk about this, because it goes back to, here we are kind of, the CDC is relaxing some of the mask mandates based on vaccinations and, outdoor indoor policies. And I don't want to go down that road, but I do think it's relevant to the discussion around S3599, because if we couldn't get that done at the height of the pandemic, then what is to make any of us believe that as we come out of this, that it's still a possibility,
Right. Right. I mean, France can give citizenship directly to their frontline workers, and US, with its vast melting, it's considered a melting pot. It's the land
Mm-hmm.
of opportunities, land of equal opportunities. And here we are rotting in a green card backlog,
Mm-hmm.
in an indentured servitude. We are looking at our kids aging out, getting deported, having lived all their life in the US, and then they're going back to the country and standing in a line for a visa.
Yep.
For people in backlog, there is a zero safety net. We contribute to Social Security in thousands dollars in taxes, and we cannot use it. If I die, if I get disabled, I lose my job, I lose everything. I
Yeah.
mean, my daughter gets deported. She's 15 and she thinks this is her home, and she's so mistaken. My wife, I mean, she has her own visa, but there are a lot of spouses who are on a dependent visa. H4 is dependent on H1 status, and they have to self-deport. And you have seen all this problem with the H4 EAD, and that's the problem is because most of the sufferers from H4 EAD problem are from India, and the reason for that is the backlog. Unless somebody addresses the backlog, there cannot be any tangible fix to the legal immigration unless the backlog is addressed.
Yep. And that has to be a first come, first serve, first in line, priority clearance. And
right.
You nailed it. You talked about aging out, and statistics show that 10,000 legal documented dreamers self-deport every year.
Wow.
And those are the future medical professionals, biomedical engineers, Java developers, network engineers, cybersecurity analysts, intrusion detection and prevention experts. Those are the folks that we're telling that you're not welcome. And I think, you mentioned the travel ban, and that's been a very hot button, right? Because, we had a presidential proclamation 10,052, which quote unquote, the H1B ban, was a ban on non-immigrant travel. And I've talked about the ban and its impact, not just on families and the division that it's created, and you having to make a decision of whether you see a dying parent, sibling, cousin, child even, and risk everything that you have here in the US to leave and go see them, or you sit here and know that you don't, and there's a finality to that. And I think that when we start to look at that and what that means, it isn't about the ban as a whole. To me, at some point that will be removed, but it's about the consulate processing and how, only globally 26% of consulates are currently open and basically non-existent in India, a country of, as you said, over 1 billion people. And when we look at, predominantly talking about the non-immigrant workers, H1Bs predominantly from India, that impact now for U.S. employers is that they have employees that have gone back to India, can't get back in. And then a lot of U.S. employers out there have new H1Bs that were awarded last year and that are going to be awarded this year. And that based on this, the ban and then the lack of consulate appointments, employers are now having this realization, Dr. Pranav, that it's going to be well into 2022 before individuals who should be already here working in the U.S. or who have been working in the U.S. may be able to legally enter. And I think that impact of that, as it relates to the offshoring and outsourcing of jobs that's going to happen now over the next 12 months because those individuals can't get into the U.S. So if they can't get into the U.S., what's the next best option? And that is, to have them work outside of the U.S. in some form or capacity. But I wanted to ask everyone who's out there, if you haven't already, please make sure that you like this video. Subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. And if you have any questions or comments that you wanted us to maybe address, please drop those in the chat. I know we've got a couple, but we've got a few more questions here tonight. And Dr. Pranav and I are going to go probably till the top of the hour. So if there's anything out there that you guys are interested in us discussing, we'd love to try to take a crack at answering your questions or comments that's relevant to this discussion tonight. So just really appreciate all of you that are out there currently watching. I think you also mentioned something else about your wife, and we didn't talk about your spouse, but she's a medical professional too. And I think that when you look at now, the impact of you, having this uncertainty, her having this uncertainty, what that creates for a family and the stress and anxiety that it creates between a marriage as well, I think is something that, is a story that doesn't get talked about enough. Because, living with this uncertainty day in and day out, right? It's the first thing you think about in the morning. It's the last thing you think about at the end of the night. And, then you've got kids as well that you throw into that. And so I think that, that high skilled immigrant anxiety has always been something that's been prevalent. But I think we've seen the growth of that happen, and COVID, honestly, is as we've talked about, rapidly accelerated that. What for you has given you hope? Is there anything out there that you're looking at going, what, I do have some hope that things are going to change? Or are you just at this point to where you're like, I don't see any change that's going to happen in the near future? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, there is always hope. The hope comes from not only the circumstances around you, but in your own abilities to deal with them. As long as you have faith and confidence in yourself, that you can survive and you can excel anywhere in the world. It's not, you have to remind yourself that green card and citizenship are not the only things left in life to think about. Right. There is more to life than green card and citizenship. So I see people who are so frustrated on the Twitter, and obviously this uncertainty is not helping us. It's not good for anybody's mental or physical health. But we cannot let it dominate us. You have to keep fighting for it, but it's not the end of the world. I just want everybody to know it's not the end of the world. If you have as Indians, we have this ability to survive anywhere in the world, and we can survive with or without green card. But it just goes to show that the country that calls itself the country of freedom with and liberties, is treating its legal immigrants like indentured slaves. I mean, it's doable. Living outside the US is doable. Living here for 15 years, you kind of get used to the lifestyle, and you get into that comfort zone. But I'm telling you, living anywhere else is, we can do it. It's I'm not going to let this green card and citizenship to interfere in my own get the um, I mean affect my abilities to function as a human being, and I'll contribute to the society wherever I go.
Right.
I can be a physician in India. I can choose to migrate to Canada or UK.
That's right.
I'm getting calls from there too. So it's just that how the world needs to know how US treats its skilled legal immigrants, and that's the main reason I'm talking to you. Basically,
Yeah,
that's the reason.
absolutely. And I think, I mention this all the time, and, William Hahn penned a piece on Vox that he talks about, the average American thinks that a high skilled immigrant such as yourself drives down to the DMV to get a visa. And, that's not the case, and everything that goes into that. Right. And I think that ultimately, Native Americans, meaning, native born Americans that look at high skilled immigrants as a threat, I think that they misinterpret the resilience of an immigrant such as yourself, someone who's willing to leave everything you've ever known in life, 15 years ago, to go pursue an opportunity. Right? Because that's what we talk about. That's what the United States of America provides as an opportunity. Whether you take advantage of it or not, ultimately is up to you. The opportunity is here. It's not about the American dream. It's about an opportunity that is present. And I think that, you really nail it, because the strength and resilience of an immigrant here in the U.S. Is something that it is immeasurable. And so that's just a great point that you made, and one that I have known about and agreed with a lot. As I've mentioned, I covered your story a good bit. I've shared photos of you on the steps of the Capitol, and I wanted to just kind of ask you what that trip was like with you and Dr. Raj. I can only imagine. I know you guys went twice, but can you just maybe share what that experience was like? Just a couple minutes, flying into DC, posters and pictures and everything. What was that like for you?
Well, Dr. Raj is a very passionate guy, and both of us, we are passionate about equality and immigration, fairness in immigration. And our purpose to go to the Capitol was to, create a noise. That was our only purpose, to create a noise and an awareness. Too bad we couldn't gather too many people because of the COVID pandemic. It's difficult to get people out, but we decided that we would stand there, hold banners and talk to whoever comes by, asks us questions why we are there, and tell them what's going on. We found few sympathizers. We found some media outlets and to cover our story, but it was just that we wanted to get it out.
Right.
Just sitting there and crying about it, it's not going to change anything. It's you have to get out. People have to know. These organizations like Immigration Voice has been working relentlessly for last 10 years. So it's not like there is no awareness in Capitol Hill. Everybody knows that this is the problem, and India is the main country that is suffering in the green card backlog. Yeah. Do you think if Ireland or a white Caucasian country was in a backlog, nothing would have been done for 10 years? I doubt that. there is nothing other than racism that is driving all this inaction. There won't be any inaction if Ireland was in backlog. I mean, Senator Durbin would be riding a race car and trying to get those people out of the backlog. But I have not seen anybody. I mean, I am disappointed at the Indian caucus. They have done nothing to advocate for our cause. I mean, look at the Hispanic caucus. Look at the support that undocumented immigrants have. I have nothing against them. They have suffered too. We have suffered too. But we don't have any advocate. I mean, I'm sorry to say that I'm disappointed at all the Indian origin leaders, even the vice president. She was a supporter for S386, and she promised my daughter. We've been to her town halls, when she was running for the president, and we would talk to her every time, and she would promise her support. She will do this, she will remove the green card backlog, but nothing has happened. And same is with Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. I mean, she said, we went to DC at one time. I took my daughter with her, the one who's Indian born and who's aging out. And she sat across us and she promised her support. And now, we don't know where the fairness bill stands. I mean, it's just semantics, or if there is some language that she's not comfortable. I don't know. I don't care. I just know that there is no political will to correct this inequality and unfairness, and Indians are the only ones who are suffering from it. And bottom line is nobody cares.
Yeah, and I think politics is always influenced by one thing, and that is the almighty power of the dollar bill.
Right.
And that influence is far and wide, and it's both sides. And I think that's something that I talked about, back in August when I first covered what then at the time the Democratic nominee, former Vice President Joe Biden's policies would be towards immigration. I covered that in September and December leading into inauguration, and I warned everyone to expect a lot of nothing, and that's what we saw for high skilled documented immigrants. And a lot of people will point back to the day one bill, and it goes back to, again, comprehensive immigration reform and the likelihood of it passing, and then is it through smaller bills? And so there's a lot that goes into that. And so I wanted to ask you, and this is something that for me, I'm just very appreciative of you coming on here on the channel tonight and telling your story. But you've done the media outlets, but why come on with me and tell the story tonight, even in even further detail?
Number one thing is because I like you. I like your passion.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have followed you, and I like the fact that you have a neutral perspective. You're not an immigration lawyer. You're not a news outlet, so people can get unfiltered, unbiased opinion from you. You're passionate about our cause. Yep. So I didn't see any reason not to come and talk to you about it.
Awesome. Well, and I think that your passion and your knowledge and living, to me it's not a nightmare, because there's a lot of positive, as you laid out, that has come from your experience here. But I think the cycle, right, the continuation of the cycle, ultimately is when you look at, gosh, I mean, I think if you were to pick up any random person on the street and say, this man's been practicing medicine here in the U.S. for 15 years and is still on an employment-based work visa. I think if the average American saw that and heard that, I think it would resonate on a completely different level. And that's been one of the intentions for me that I've tried to make sure the message has been, and that is to provide both sides, give my color and my opinion in the middle, but bring awareness to these issues, because I have very close personal friends that every time they watch one of these interviews or live streams that I do, they say, wow, I just can't believe that that's what's going on in this country and how broken it is. But the problem is they don't know what to do about it. And, you know, I think a lot of people are curious, like, what do we do about it? And so I wanted to ask everyone out there, just, you know, like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. There's a bunch of questions and comments that have come in. Dr. Pranav and I are going to get to them because a lot of them are relevant to the discussion here. So keep posting those in the chat. We're going to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes to go through those. But before we do so, you know, Dr. Pranav, I wanted to ask, you know, we always ask this question. It's kind of the wrap up to the interview before we get into the Q&A, and that's, what's next for Dr. Pranav Singh?
You know, it's difficult. Right now, I'm in a state of contemplation. I'm weighing all my options. I'm keeping my options open. You know, I don't know how long I'm going to depend on an immigration reform. I've not seen any movement happen on the legal immigration front for a decade now. I mean, the only bipartisan bill that made it to the House and the Senate is still again stuck in the House. I have no hope for anything else that's not even been introduced or voted on. So do I wait? I don't, without knowing when we're going to get some answers, do I wait for my daughter to get to age out? Or do I live in indentured servitude till then? Or do I have, or should I opt for a life with more freedom, maybe less amenities? You know, at some stage in life, you don't care about quality of life, amenities. You worry more about freedom. So I'm just going to keep my options open here. I mean, I am looking at establishing practicing in India at this point as we are speaking. So
I think you need to.
Yeah, and so is my wife. I don't think we can wait.
And I hate to say that you need to, but you do, because there is this lingering uncertainty, and you know, that lingering uncertainty for you is a few more years at a minimum. And so it becomes, how long do you continue to wait and allow that to continue to linger? And you know, it just is, it's crazy to me that here you are, you know, one of two pulmonologists in 100 square mile radius, and you know, you're at a point where you're honestly having to consider other options. And you know, that to me is ultimately why I wanted to have you on and talk about that, and talk about how I think, like a lot of people over the last 18 months, the aha moment that you had, you know, and how that's impacted you. And I think, to me, I sense this kind of peace from you about that, right? And we talked about that, and that's what I meant by mindset. So so we're going to jump into the Q&A here. You know, just if you have any other questions or comments, I know there's a bunch in here, please post those in the chat. We'll get through them. I'll bring them up on the screen here and read them. So Google user possible says, hi, how you doing? I know you've got some comments coming up. Dr. Oscar Cabrices in the house. Good to see you. He talks about Chelsea here. Dr. Pranav, that's my English football Premier League team, who won yesterday in a very tight 2-1 battle to Leicester City after losing the FA Cup finals on Saturday over the weekend. So we back the Blue Lions. I back the Blue Lions, and that's he's a big time soccer fan. So as you can imagine, Dr. Oscar was also on the H1B Guy Stamp It Out Q&A 5 for those of you out there. You know, here you go, Dr. Pranav. Xenophobia against Indians is the cause of this. I mean, I think you mentioned that, you know, the systemic racism and, you know, the indentured servitude component to it, and how it has control and restrictions around that. This is very much a growing sentiment in the high skilled Indian immigrant community here in the U.S. Dr. Oscar says, I wish physicians, just like scientists, would have a special EB category of its own that would be express, current, and not capped by country. That would be my fix, kind of like an EB doc category. Yeah, we've talked about that a good bit. Reach, who is always on the live streams. Thank you, Reach. Appreciate your support. Replied back to Dr. Oscar here, Pranav, and says every high-skilled immigrant should be treated equally, irrespective of if they are a physician or not. Right. And I think this sentiment right here is one that's very interesting, because we talked about documented dreamers. We talked about H4 EADs and the delays. We talked about medical MDs. We've talked about H1Bs that are in STEM roles. And so what does that tell you? We start to look at all these different individuals that have very unique situations, and the division that's created because it's all about what's in it for me, and it kind of takes away from the power in numbers group mentality. Do you have any thoughts around this?
Exactly. I agree with you. I mean, unless you take care of unless you fix the root cause is the racist country cap. I mean, you can you can put it in bold, you can highlight it, and you can underline it that the country caps are racist, regardless of whatever you say. You can defend them by saying diversity. I mean, there is a separate diversity lottery and a diversity visa for that. Why do you have to bring high-skilled immigrants into diversity? I mean, if you're talking about diversity and still keeping us in a bonded labor, that just is blatant racism. There is no secondary. There is no second question about that. It is racism, and this is tactics that the politicians have used. Whenever something like a fairness bill comes to vote, this divide and rule starts happening. Most of the times, it starts from Senator Durbin, who tries to distract the immigrants by floating his good for nothing bills that we know are not going to head anywhere, and he has not done any reform in 30 years. Give me one immigration reform that he has been able to pass.
But yet the Democrats in the state of Illinois continue to reelect him. Right. I mean, I think that goes back to I'm going to give a shout out to my old man here on this, because I know he's watching, but my old man, my dad, is really big on term limits. And if we had term limits specifically for bozos like Senator Durbin, honestly, this problem would begin to go away. It's kind of like the old guard in Major League Baseball, Dr. Pranav, and this analogy may go over your head, but there's this old guard in Major League Baseball that talks about the unspoken rules, right? And that's the same nonsense that we're dealing with here when we look at somebody like Senator Durbin, who is manipulated by the donors and puts on a facade for a lot of the constituents. And as long as we continue to allow individuals like this to be career politicians and not have term limits, problems like this are going to continue to arise, whether it's immigration or some other political issue.
Right. Like you said, it's a facade. I mean, that him being the immigration stalwart is a facade, and we have seen that. I mean, I've been involved in this only for past 2 years, and I have seen what he has done. I mean, you don't even need to be an expert in immigration to see what these politicians are up to.
That's right.
They'll divide you into groups. There is a separate faction of physicians fighting for themselves, and then there is this H4 dreamers, and then there are people fighting for H4 EAD. And the more division we create, that's how the British ruled India for 200 years, is to create divisions.
That's right.
All immigrants have to come together. The ultimate cause for all these problems is the backlog. Even the doctors are in this state because of the backlog and because of the racist country caps. I mean, you can increase the green card. I will be more than happy if the CIR goes through. But President Biden himself has admitted in the tweet that there is no way that this immigration reform can happen. It has to be a piecemeal reform.
That's right.
So I mean, there is no way that you can reform legal immigration without removing the racist country caps.
Yep.
You
And
have to remove the.
Reach says right here, why only are Indians facing this backlog? And it's because of the INA from 1990 that put a 7% quota on the 140,000 employment-based green cards that are issued annually based on country of birth. And, Oscar, replied back to the point about treating everyone equally irrespective. And I think Oscar's just trying to be creative in a separate category for MDs, right? What solutions are out there? As you said here, Dr. Pranav, just now, and Reach echoes the sentiment, unity is the strength, which is missing big time, because what happens is it becomes very much individualized. And I think that that's what makes it such a problem. Here's our good buddy, Dr. Raj. Good to see you. He says, what do you think why do you think why Biden administration is not focusing on legal frontline healthcare workers? And I think it's something that we talked about earlier, Dr. Pranav, and that is they're looking at the numbers of shots that have gone in arms, right? And as the vaccination numbers and the percentages of those increase to a certain point, they're going, now we no longer have to consider some sort of relief like this for frontline healthcare workers because the pandemic is going away, right? And not that I don't think that it is. If you look at numbers and new cases, as we talked about earlier, I think we're all chomping at the bit to get back to whatever the new normal looks like. But any thoughts on this question from Dr. Raj?
Well, I think he knows the answer. The bottom line is that the administration does not care, and we have not been vocal enough. I mean, we call for people to come out and protest, and hardly 2 or 3 people show up. So you can't have a voice, and you can't create an impact by 2 or 3 people there standing with the banners in the Capitol. I mean, if we have 100 doctors come there and sit down for a protest for a week, there is no reason that they will not sit up and notice us. But it's not happening. People are just too busy in their family life, their comfort zone, and I hope this COVID pandemic will be an eye opener for them, and maybe more people will join us. But we are just going to keep talking about it. Have a voice, and like Robert, you are our voice. Same way we have to just be relentless in in our pursuit. I don't see any other way out of it.
Yep.
Ultimately,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, ultimately they have to just do the right thing. Yep. I think they know that this is a problem. But it's just that we don't matter. We're not a vote bank. Yep. Like you said, follow the money trail and follow the vote bank. We are neither of that. So the immigration lawyers, they don't care about us. They are happy. We are their cash cow. This unlimited visa renewals. Once you get a green card or a citizen, you don't need an immigration lawyer. So we are their cash cow. They want to keep the cash cow running. It's like a golden goose. The story of the golden goose.
That's right.
The golden egg. They don't want to kill that golden goose. They want that golden goose of green card backlog to live for another 100 years.
Right.
They don't care about our aging out kids. I mean, separated families, deported widows. They don't care about that.
No, you're right. And, Reach says, can you talk about practical solutions moving forward? This is the same thing. We are fragmented and no proper org to take up the cause. I mean, you've got several different organizations out there, but the voice is not unified across all of the different verticals. And, I think as Google User Possible says, what are the solutions? What needs to be done? What will help educate the politicians? Solutions needed. And Reach's response to that, Dr. Pranav, was consistent rallies in front of the local media government places in every district. And that goes back to you standing in front of the Capitol with posters and getting attention from that. And you did it twice, and you got multiple outlets to cover that story. And so, you look at how can we all be united for this cause of green card backlog resolution, all EB2, EB3 people who are affected by the backlogs. And I don't want to get into the politics of what's happening in India right now, but you look at, there's division there as a country as well. I think we're seeing a rapid change in society, and a lot of that is based on this borderless society that we're living in and operating in.
Right.
You know, how do you change the mindset of politicians and lawmakers? Well, it's letters, it's donations, it's meetings and numbers, and it's consistent approach. You know, I think that's the thing that you know, is really the message that needs to be told. I also wanted to give a special shout out to my friend Samir. Samir was on Stamp It Out Q&A 8. Thank you for the super chat, Samir. I really appreciate it. As always, during these live streams, if you're looking for ways to support the H1B Guy channel and the H1B Guy platform, you can do so through the super chat feature. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com/the H1B Guy if you like the content that I produce and create. You can help support the channel. Anything that is contributed through those means are reinvested back into the H1B Guy platform. You know, it says it seems that there's no will to pass these bills, right? And I think we talked about this. To me, it seems more like standalone, smaller bills are going to be the right way to whittle at this thing. But what's interesting, and you alluded to President Biden's tweet, which I commented on over the weekend, and he talked about undocumented dreamers, refugees, and TPS, that the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021 needs to be passed, full stop. And I said, you know, Mr. President, I'm assuming that you unintentionally left out high-skilled immigrants, right? And I think that message is loud and clear. That here is a tweet from the POTUS account, and you know, some of the comments were, well, they're included in the U.S. Citizenship Act text. Well, yes, they are, meaning, you know, the employment-based preferences, clearing the backlog, recapturing caps, some of that language that's in the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. But the point is that they were intentionally left out of that tweet. That speaks volumes to where the current administration is.
Right.
And as Reach says, other than money, it is public pressure. And that's exactly right. It is all about public pressure, and Reach, thank you for your support. You know, thanks for joining Dr. Pranav and I here tonight, and you know, thank you very much, H1B Guy, for all your help and activism and providing a voice for this cause of backlog. We appreciate you so much. Listen, I will tell you that, and I've told this story, I didn't know that this channel and my platform would take on a lot of the political nature that it has. But it has, and it's allowed me to merge my professional skills with personal interests, and it's something that I'm extremely passionate about and genuine about. And I think that that's what comes through here in these conversations with folks like Dr. Pranav. It says, H1B Guy, we're exhausted now waiting in these backlogs, still waiting for a green card, still waiting. It's very tiring and exhausting mentality. Yeah, that's what we talked about, right? Dr. Pranav, is you're in this situation where you're waiting. You have to wait. Your choice is wait or leave, right? Those are kind of the two choices: wait or leave right now until something changes. Rakshita, go ahead.
I think for you know, whoever asked this question, I would say that don't let it get under your skin. Just you know, keep all your options open. Just keep advocating for yourself, for your peers, and you know, keep talking about the inequality and unfairness in immigration, and ultimately always be prepared to leave. Don't invest too much in this country unless you have some certainty or status. You know, there is no need to spend your money buying a house. Otherwise, it's just going to be a painful situation for you.
That's right. That's right. Rashik asks, if a staffing firm files my H and if I go back home due to family emergency, will I be charged or fined? Please reply, thank you. You won't be charged or fined, but you're going to be stuck, right? I mean, I think that that's the thing right now was that, and I've told my friend Samir this because his wife has an H4 that's up for renewal and was talking about going back for stamping in July, and now that's not an option. You cannot leave the country and expect to get back in right now unless you have a U.S. born dependent or you are married to a U.S. citizen. If you don't do that, then I will tell you that if you were to leave the country right now, I would plan on not re-entering until sometime early to mid 2022. And that's a very difficult reality, thank you for taking the time to do these live videos. She followed up with my pleasure. I love the live streams. I love producing my long form, essay format. I hope, you all enjoy that. I know you do, but I really enjoy the live streams. The Stamp It Out was one of the first ideas that I had when I was coming up with the H1B Guy concept. So my good friend Chetan has some questions for you, Dr. Pranav. Chetan says, hello, doctor. What advice do you have for immigrants from backlog countries who come here for studies or are on H1Bs? How to make that call? There needs to be more awareness for incoming immigrants. And then he's got a follow-up question. I'm just going to go ahead and bring that up so you can answer both of them. It says, for someone who has been in the backlog for years, maybe with kids, how do you respond to the question when someone says, what keeps you from leaving to, say, Canada? And I think we've talked about both of these tonight, right? And so to go back to the first one, what advice do you have for immigrants from backlog countries?
So, we always get asked, when we talk about green card backlog and the unfairness, and there will always be somebody who would say, why don't you go back to India? Why don't you go to Canada? Does anybody ask any of the whites or Caucasians who are in the US to go back to Ireland or to go back to England or to go back to Germany? No. Mm-hmm. So whoever asks you this question basically is just a manifestation of their racism. I mean, there is nothing that can explain that. I mean, I choose to live wherever I want to. Who is anybody else to tell me, why don't you go to Canada? Why don't you go to India? I chose to come here, and I want to be treated equally. I want to be treated fair. Why do I have to answer that question of going back? I'll go back if I want to, You never ask anybody else to go back to their country. Why do you ask us? India needs us. I know that, we can always contribute to India living in the US too. I mean, you have seen the remittances from the NRIs who live in the US, and they're close to $100 billion a year. And that is supporting India's economy too. I mean, people who are US citizens, they are living in the US, they are working part-time in India, and we are all contributing our part. As a physician, I have been actively treating people whom I don't even know, and I'm treating free of charge through teleconsultation in India. So it's not like we are not contributing to our country. We are. And nobody has any right to tell us where to go.
That's right. And I think, you really nailed it, because it's easy to label Indian immigrants as cheap labor and stealing American jobs. But I've talked about this a lot. And that is that, for every one H1B employee companies have, it creates, I estimate, 2 American jobs, whatever those jobs may be. It increases the wages of their American workers that work alongside them and around them. And having high-skilled immigrants on employment-based visas working as your peers and colleagues. And so I think that there's this big misconception that really it's beginning, the myths are beginning to be dispelled, right? We're seeing that more and more. And I think you nailed it. You have a choice. Your choice is that you want to be here. But if we're going to continue to send you the message that you're not welcome here, at some point you're going to pack up and go. And you talked about India. And one of the things we've talked about a good bit with India, and we talked about the innovation that's occurring in India, and some of the fastest growing companies globally are founded, headquartered, and based in India. So the equality to living and working in India, the only real difference right now is the compensation, which for most immigrants who come to the U.S. make at least 6 times what they would make in another country or their home country. And so, you know, ultimately that's kind of what's the golden carrot that's still dangled in front of you, right? And so Chetan follows up here. Dr. Pranav says, I believe in go where you are treated the best. So if there is no reasonable path to settling down, I feel we should just leave. This is a growing sentiment that we've been seeing since 2017.
No, that's a growing sentiment, and you know, it's not easy. I mean, it's easy to say, but if you have lived in this country for 15 years, you have established some roots. You know, it's not easy to just give up everything and move one day, but it's a slow process. But that's what I would. Somebody asked that question: if what would you tell the students who want to come and work here? I would say they still do it. You know, there shouldn't be any. If you have a way to acquire knowledge, and you have access to it, then go for it. Just don't depend on this country to give you any kind of certainty or an immigration status. Just be prepared that you will be in a green card backlog for the rest of your life. And if you are okay with that, I mean, if you want to gain work experience, you want to study, I would still do it. But ultimately, in the big scheme of things, you are not going to get the you're not going to get certainty and a safety net that you want, that if you're from India or from other backlog country.
So I wanted to give Abe Saxena, thank you so much for the super chat. Abe says, thanks for your work. Hope this helps increase awareness and unites the backlog community. Yeah, I'm going to do I'll do a timestamp and try to post that in the job description sometime by tomorrow afternoon, because I know these interviews tend to get a little bit long. I did want to mention to Tiger, if you will email me or reach out to me through my website, the H1B Guy at gmail.com, or just contact me through the H1BGuy.com. There's a message function there. I'd like to hopefully help answer your question, and Google possible. Same to you on that. You know, just shoot me an email or reach out to me. And I see your priority date's May 13th, 2011. My son's birthday is May 13th. So a little bit of a coincidence there. And then just kind of wrapping up here, Rakshitha, thank you so much for the super chat. You know, really appreciate your support and joining in here in the live streams. And you know, you say right now due to COVID, I'm scared every hour thinking about my family. I've lost 4 relatives, and then I'm close to have my H4 filed this June. What happens if I go back, you know, quitting my job? And good luck getting back into the country. You're going to have to find a new employer that's willing to sponsor you, go through the change of H1B change of employer transfer, new consulate appointment, and basically kind of restarting that entire process. And I think that this right here, lost 4 relatives, you know, as the waves, the spikes that happened. And, you know, we've all seen the photos that have been out there, Dr. Pranav, and, you know, all of the media coverage that had circled around the new variants in India. And I think that this is common, that for a lot of high-skilled immigrants currently in the U.S., very similar to Rakshitha here, and that is they have relatives who have been impacted by this issue. And, you know, knowing that they can't go be with them because of the ban, because of the outbreak, you know, this is the life right now for high-skilled immigrants in India, worried about friends and family back home.
Right.
It's crazy. So last thing, Google user, it's the H1B Guy at gmail.com. You can email me there. Or if you just go to the website, the there is a contact page, and you can message me through there via your email, and I'll respond back to you. So I wanted to thank all of the chat questions and comments. Dr. Oscar, Reach, thank you. Google user, thank you. Dr. Raj, thank you. Chetan, your brilliance is always appreciated, and contributions here to the chat. Thank you. Thank you, Samir, for the super chat. Thank you, Abe. Thank you, Rakshitha, for the super chats. Just really appreciate all of your support and coming out and showing Dr. Pranav's support here tonight. Dr. Pranav, I think your intelligence, your awareness of your situation, and your ability to articulate your feelings and emotions around, honestly, such a controversial and delicate subject for me. I'm so impressed and so proud to and privileged to have had you on here to tell your story, and know that if there's anything I can do to help you in the future, and help you bring more awareness to this situation, I'm here to help you in any way I can. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming on tonight.
No, thank you, Robert. It was my pleasure to be here. And like I said, I like your passion for this, for our backlog community, and I feel so good to come here and talk about it. And if there is anybody in the administration who is watching this, that will serve the purpose. And again, I would just thank you to give me this opportunity to be here and talk to you.
That's right. We want to reach one more person, educate one more person.
Right.
And that's the great thing about these live streams and YouTube, is that, these videos, I believe, will outlive you and I, right? Much worse than the green card backlog. And hopefully this is a little timestamp in history where folks can go back and look at this and be like, wow, look at how archaic those laws were and how much they've changed. So
right.
I wanted to remind everyone that tonight's live stream was brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. This national job board network provides recruitment websites in 1,024 major U.S. metro areas. Each local job board is its own portal and is a low-cost resource for immigration recruitment ads for all industries and professions, with a flat price of $225 per ad, regardless of which city you choose. RecruiterNetworks.com has been the #1 place for immigration attorneys, immigration ad agencies, and employers to meet the DOL requirements for the digital portion of the perm advertisement rules. RecruiterNetworks.com. Tell them the H1B guy sent you. And tonight's stream was also brought to you by Path to Canada. Path to Canada provides an ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain. If you're facing an H1B denial or OPT expiration, don't get caught off guard. Make sure you have a plan B, and Path to Canada is your answer. They will help you navigate the process. If you're interested in finding out more, please be sure to click the link in the description below. Well, I just want to say one last time, Dr. Pranav, thank you so much. To everyone out there, if you haven't, please like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube so that you're notified anytime we go live, like we have here tonight with Dr. Pranav Singh. And if you haven't, make sure that you click the bell for notifications. And just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's made it this far. Just really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Watch this live stream, even if it's at a future date. So thank you so much for your support. I'm Robert. I'm the H1B guy, your global source for all things H1B.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Dr. Pranav. Really appreciate it.